Hey everybody, welcome to another comic book review. In this video, I'll be talking about The Metabarons by Alejandro Jodorowsky and Juan Gimenez. So, The Metabarons is basically um, sort of a prequel to The Incal, also a bit of a sequel. It's a spin-off of the Metabaron character from The Incal, um, and this tells of the entire family history of the nameless Metabaron from the Incal. Um, and it goes back multiple generations. It tells of um, the four Metabarons that came before him and all the people that were involved in the previous Metabarons' lives, what a Metabaron is, how to become one, and the entire history of the Kostaka clan leading up to No Name, the Metabaron that we know from the Incal. Now, I said before, the Incal was a revolutionary comic. I strongly believe that the Matrix would not exist without the Incal, nor would Alien or Blade Runner or a good number of classic sci-fi pieces of media. The Incal was pretty much revolutionary. I like the Metabarons even better. Um, and I loved the Incal. I thought it was great. Metabarons is like one of the most epic stories that I've read in a long time. And I don't mean just from a story perspective. The art here is unbelievable. Like some of the things that Juan Jimenez, the artist, is able to accomplish here are just mind blowing. Like this is nuts. The colors that went into this, the detail. He uses like a lot of washes with his art, and like it just looks beautiful. It's like these full scale. They almost look like paintings, like that you would hang in a museum. Um, this book is gorgeous to look at. And the story, from a story perspective, it's just fantastic. So, as I said, it is basically like a giant history lesson of the Kostaka clan, who were a clan of warriors that were they kind of lived on distant planets, and there were like this noble bloodline of warriors, and the Metabaron is this honorary title that goes to like the most powerful beings in the Kostaka clan. It starts off with a character named Othan von Salza, and Othan was one of the earliest Metabarons, and it starts off telling his story. And so you get Othan's perspective and what he did in order to become a Metabaron, and then you get a whole situation with his son Bari, and then his wife Honorata is an integral part of the story. And then after you get Honorata's story, you get their son Agnar, and Agnar becomes the next Metabaron. And then after him, you get Steelhead, who is a very interesting character and goes through a lot of changes throughout the course of this book. One of the cooler characters for sure. After Steelhead, you get Agora, and then you get the fifth and final Metabaron, No Name, who is the one from the Incal. So the cool thing about the tradition of the Metabarons is that in order to become one, there are like a number of things, like criteria that each Metabaron has to meet. The whole like tradition is kind of brutal. Basically, what you would have to do is, in order to become a Metabaron, you have to be of Kostaka lineage, and then also, most of the Metabarons have some sort of like cybernetic appendage. So, for example, um, Othan got like a good portion of his waist blown off in an earlier part of the story. So parts of his waist are like cybernetic, and then you get Steelhead, who is literally called Steelhead because his head was removed and got a cybernetic head. Um, and then Agnar has cybernetic feet, and No Name has a cybernetic ear. So like all of the Metabarons have like some sort of cybernetic appendage, and in order to become a Metabaron, the upcoming one has to kill their father, the previous Metabaron, in combat, or else he doesn't earn the title of Metabaron. So it's this whole complicated tradition, and the book gets into it in glorious detail. This thing is huge. Like, I mean, you notice this thing is a massive book. It's like over 500 pages. It's huge. And in order to tell the complex story that it tells, I feel like it had to be that long because it gets into some very complex ideas, and it's one that you really have to pay attention to. And it's one that I can totally see myself coming back to and discovering a whole ton of information that I didn't pick up on at first, on the first read through. Now, in order to understand this book, you might be asking, do you have to read the Incal in order to understand the Metabarons? No, you don't. But I would recommend it, just because there's a lot of really cool Easter eggs and like things that happen in this book that kind of go back to ideas that were presented in the Incal, and like some of the locations are the same and some of the terminology is the same, and it takes place in the same universe. So it is cool if you've read the Incal before this and want to kind of have fun with discovering some things that you are familiar with from the Incal. But if you've never read the Incal, it's no big deal. You could just jump into this thing and understand it pretty well. I like to think of the Metabarons as like Game of Thrones in space. This thing is like densely packed with a ton of like sex and violence and gore and political intrigue and romance and epic battles and all the things that people love about Game of Thrones, but in space. So it's very, very cool, and I really, really dig it. The storytelling here, like I said, is on a whole nother level. Jodorowsky is a master. He's a genius. I've loved pretty much everything that I've read or watched from him, whether it be like his books or his films. I think the guy's an artistic genius. And this book is my favorite of his that I've read so far. Now, this does collect just the original Metabarons series. This is the original 8 books packed into one. So they call it the first cycle. So there are some other things in the Metabarons series, but this is like the original, the initial one. You don't really have to read anything else. This is just like the one that started it all, and it's fantastic. There is another series out there, the Metabarons second cycle, which was originally just called the Metabaron, not the plural Metabarons, but that will be for another time. This book, however, is fantastic, and I totally recommend this to any fan of big epic sci-fi, just on a grand scale. I think this book is fantastic. In terms of issues that I have with it, the narrators of the story are these two little robots, and it's funny because at first I became really annoyed with them, and a lot of the humor is kind of misplaced. There are other jokes that land perfectly, but some of the jokes don't land as well as they could have. Um, and I think that kind of comes from like some tonal inconsistencies with like jumping back to like the two goofy robot characters that like narrate the story. But if you read the book, you'll see that even those characters come to be very, very, very important later on in the series. So I don't know, like the flaws that I have with this book are very, very few, and they're very small. Um, Aside from that, I mean, this book is pretty much a masterpiece. I loved it. I thought it was wonderful, and I will definitely read it again at some point further down the road. I think it's great. So those are my thoughts on the first cycle of the Metabarons by Alejandro Jodorowsky and Juan Gimenez. Thank you as always for watching, and look forward to more videos in the future. Have a great day.